everybody's on, and I think now everybody's on. So good morning, everybody. Yes, we have another Saturday. We are 2 weeks into the new year. 2 weeks. It doesn't feel like it, does it? Does it feel longer or does it feel shorter? What does it feel? My grandson said to me yesterday, Mosey, did last year feel short to you? And I know for some people it's been a very long and a very tough haul, and for others it's been whatever it's been. It is what it is, isn't it, for all of us? And depending on what goes on, but looking at it from a child's perspective, time really does go very, very fast. I can always remember, I'm going off onto a tangent now. I can always remember my husband's, and my daughter always says ex-husband, ex-father, she'll say, my ex-husband's grandmother. So she would be Reese's great grandmother. And she used to have all sorts of visions and all sorts of things going on. But I remember her saying to me, when you're a child, time seems to go slowly. There seems to be so much to do. And then you get to a point where, it sort of it speeds up. And then she said, when you're old like me, Rosemary, then all of a sudden time slows and the days just feel endless. So I suppose I'm not going to admit to the days being endless. I'm not that old. And aside from which, I can barely get everything I'm planned in a day. I can barely get it to fit in or to fit it all in. Right. So first of all, then this morning, I'd like to say good morning to my spirit guide Grey Eagle, who as always is standing to my right side. And we were very, very fortunate on Thursday for him to actually give us all a message. And I don't know quite what happened, but it seemed to stop all the questions, stop all the flow. He gave a message, and not one person afterwards gave a message or a comment. I think we either stunned everybody into silence. I'm not quite sure what happened. I'd also like to say good morning to Chris. Good morning, Chris. How are you?
Good morning, everyone. I'm great.
So what do you think happened on Thursday? Did we have a breakdown? Was there a glitch in the communication stuff, or do you think everybody was just so silenced by the fact that Greg let us come and given us a message? What do you think?
If I were a betting man, I would say we all went into introspection because of what Gray Eagle said.
I would say so too. I would absolutely say so too. So anyway, right then. Yes, it was. He gave us some very profound and wonderful, wonderful messages. So, do we have anybody on our story time today, Chris? What do you think?
Oh, we have lots of people. They're waiting for you.
Can I just say the phrase that I love to say, that all mediums are supposed to say, but we don't, when we're going into seances, which we don't really do anymore either, maybe sometimes. But I used to love the phrase, is there anybody there? And you say it in this sort of kind of spooky, soft voice. And I used to make my audiences hold hands and say it to me. Just for fun. Just for fun. So I'm sorry, you were saying we have lots and lots of people. Do we have people from all over the world again?
Yes, we have a lot of your favorite followers on, and I see a couple of new names, so that's great.
Oh,
And I
good,
see
good.
people already commenting, oh, I'm going to have to watch last Thursday's show.
Yeah, you have to. And we do stream it, so you can find it on YouTube. You can find it on Facebook, on my Facebook page. I'm thinking, where else can you find it? You can find it on Twitter, and you can find me all over the place. I'm just all over the place. Yesterday, you could find me on Instagram with my Yorkshire puddings. I know some of you are saying, "Her what?" My Yorkshire puddings. And I don't know if Dean is here this morning, but I did send him the recipe, but I forgot one small, perhaps insignificant, but not so insignificant ingredient. I forgot to put down sunflower oil. But anyway, oil, any kind of oil. Don't use olive oil because it's a little bit too heavy. But anyway, there we have it. I'm rambling again, Chris. You're going to have to keep me in check this morning.
Oh no, we love it when you ramble.
Do
But
you?
Maggie says, I loved seeing the platter you made of Yorkshire pudding. They looked yummy. I did not think Yorkshire pudding was cream puff like.
Well, I think in certain parts of America they have something similar. It's really not the same, although a lot of people think it's the same, but it really isn't. But you have what is it? You call them popovers,
Yeah.
which are dusted with sugar, but they're not nearly as fluffy and puffy and delicious as our Yorkshire pudding is. Reese, I made some roast lamb the other day. We had people over for dinner, and I made roast lamb and Yorkshire puddings. And I think I've explained this before. My daughter's oven is not an oven you'd really want to cook in, so anything that comes out great is like a little bit of a miracle. And she has very few trays and oven dishes because they can't fit them in, most of them, into the oven. And so usually when I'm making Yorkshire pudding, I put it on top of I put the thing on a larger platter. And I got the platter out and realized when I put the thing in, it was just the same size. So I put the Yorkshire puddings in the oven. You really want to know this, don't you, everybody? You all want to know about my little incident in the kitchen. And it's a gas oven, and I put the thing in, and I must have just slightly tipped or tilted or something, and a few little spots of oil hit the back of the oven. And I didn't realize it until I turned around, and there's this thick black smoke puthering out of the back of the oven. The smoke alarm went off. I thought, and I'd actually forgotten also to put the fan on. So my daughter then decided what fun it would be to just text everybody to tell them my mother burned the Yorkshire puddings. If you've seen the picture, you will know I did not burn the Yorkshire puddings, but we had a sort of like a minute or two there. The neighbours knocked on the door. My daughter, oh, my mother's burned the Yorkshire puddings. Anyway, but Reese has decided he loves Yorkshire puddings, so he's had them every day this week. So anyway, moving on away from the kitchen, it is story time, and I've debated this morning. I've really debated on, what story to tell, because there are so many to choose from. So anyway, I have lit on a story that I decided on, a story which actually is not my story, but it was told to me by somebody else. And then what I'd love to do, if you listen to this story, which is somebody else's story, if you have a story that's a similar story, you could tell us that story either this morning, or you could write in to our email. You'd write to Chris at rosemaryaltea.com, and in your subject line put story, and we would love it to hear your stories. And if you write and tell us your story, that is tantamount to giving permission to use your story on the show. So so there are lots of weird things happen to lots of weird people, and there are a lot of things happen to people who aren't weird at all. We're just ordinary people. So this story, and as you all know, we begin every story with once upon a time, because that's the way it is. All right. So once upon a time, I knew a man who he was very down to earth. He was a computer guy for, I think, something like 30 years. He worked in the same place, took care of all, those big wall computers that big companies have. He took care of all those computers. He was in his little computer room. He used to make me laugh because he had a TV in his computer room, an old TV in his computer room, and he used to get all the old shows. And so while he had one eye on the computers and the other eye he had on the TV, and we used to watch all sorts of shows. And he'd often call me up or text me and say, "Hey, I just watched this show or that show," some really good old shows that he really loved. What a job, right? Aren't you all thinking, wow, I would love a job like that? So what I'm trying to convey to you is it was very ordinary, very down to earth, everyday kind of person. Um, Not particularly ambitious, very contented with his life. He liked to fish, he liked to go camping, he liked to do all those things that ordinary people do, as we all do. I used to go fishing with my daddy when I was a kid anyway. So very ordinary, very down to earth. And he uh, he told me a story. So this is his story. So Gary, if you're listening, I'm sorry, but I'm stealing your story, but I know you won't mind. So once upon a time, Gary was perhaps, I'm guessing it's around 7 or 8 years old. He was in bed, lying in bed this particular night, and he was woken up out of a very deep sleep with the feeling that somebody was tickling his toes. He sort of, you know, kicked a bit, snuggled back down. The tickling persisted, and then it felt as if somebody was tugging at his feet. So he sort of opened his eyes, a bit bleary eyed, and he looked. And there was his grandmother standing at the bottom of the bed, and she was obviously trying to wake him up. And at first, he sort of, he didn't think much of it, and he tried to go back to sleep. And until he heard his grandmother say to him, "You have to get up." At which point, he sat up in bed because his grandmother had died just a few months before. So he knew that he was seeing a ghost. He was old enough to know that he was seeing a ghost. But as he was sitting up and shaking like a leaf because of this ghostly figure, not really ghostly figure, she looked perfectly normal to him. She shouted at him again, "Gary, get up, get up!" But he was still a bit too stunned, and he just sort of sat there and blinked and couldn't believe his eyes. And then he told me, he said it was almost as if she grew, or it was as if her shadow sort of came looming over the bed. And so it's almost like she loomed over the bed and yelled in his ear, get out now." And he was so terrified, he leapt out of bed and raced into his mother's room, shouting, "Mum, grandma's in my bedroom, grandma's in my bedroom." It was so. Sorry about that. Are we still there, Chris?
You are.
So he was so terrified. And of course, she immediately pulled the covers back and he jumped into bed. He was trembling and trembling, and she was holding him and she was saying to him, "Tell me what happened." And as he's trying to tell her what happened, there was the most enormous crashing sound. Everybody now leapt out of Mum's bed and went rushing into the bedroom where Gary had laid just moments before, and the ceiling had come down. And had Gary been in the bed, of course, he would have been crushed and severely injured, if not worse, by the ceiling. Now, he was 10 years old when that happened, and he definitely remembers it. He definitely remembers how his grandmother loomed over him. He definitely remembered how she shouted at him to get out. And had he not gotten out in that moment and just raced out, it would have been a catastrophe. He always felt since then, and I have to say I agree with him, he always felt that his grandmother was watching him, watching over him, that she was his angel, in fact. He always felt that if anything was going to happen, as long as he was able to listen to her, as long as he was able to connect with her in one way or another, he always felt that, she would be that one to care for him and to protect him. And I think that he was right. Now, I can tell you a dozen more stories, actually more than a dozen. I can tell you dozens more stories, uh, stories that are not my own, stories that are other people's stories of things that happen in a similar way. The man who buys an airplane ticket and for some reason at the last moment he can't go, something happens, he gives his ticket to somebody else, and the plane crashes, and that's happened quite a few times. The woman who gets in a car to go to the corner shop, and for some reason or another she's delayed, or she hears a voice, or if she has a sense, did I leave something in the house? There's something going on, that little voice that goes on inside of your head, and you don't know if it's your own mind, or if it's your own thoughts, or is it somebody in the spirit world putting those thoughts into your head. And that delay means that she just missed a terrible accident, a terrible road accident that she would definitely have been involved in had she gone when she was supposed to. It happened to me that I had an accident many years ago. There's another story coming here. I had an accident many, many years ago. Samantha was just a baby. She was sleeping in the back seat of the car, and a man came out of a side road, and I was on the main road. And he came out of the side road, didn't stop, and just smashed his car right into me. By the time, sorry, there's noise in the background here. By the time I had gone to the garage, had them check it out, by the time we'd exchanged this, that, and the other, I was on my way. And as I arrived at the place that I was going, or just before I arrived at the place that I was going to, I passed all these cars that crashed, dented, the ambulances, people lying by the side of the road. And had I not been in an accident, albeit a small one myself, no injuries, thank goodness, if I had not been in that small accident myself, I would have been involved very much so, right smack in the heart of a major accident. Sometimes we know, don't we, that people are caring for us. Sometimes we know that people in the spirit world are protecting us. And one last interesting little tidbit, right? I'm going to give you an interesting little tidbit now. I'm going to tell you something about my own personal, private life. I don't want you to tell anybody. It's a secret. Right, Chris?
Absolutely.
These things are secret. You can tell anyone you like, really. I don't think I have any secrets anymore, but years and years ago, my father died. It was, to all intents and purposes, very sudden, very quick, but he'd been sick for a long time before that and just hadn't told anybody. But anyway, so he died. Okay. And it was less than 3 months later that uh, I had planned to take my daughter swimming. She would be 6 years old, and I planned to take her swimming. And my friend Barbara was coming with me, and she had a 6-year-old daughter, and also she had a 4-year-old son. So we decided we'd take them all swimming. So off we go. So we get to the pool, and as we get in there, they say to us, "I'm sorry, but you can't come in because you don't have water wings, and you don't have this and that, and children under a certain age had to have all of those things." So we were very disappointed. So, as a little bit of an excitement, I said to Barbara, "Hey, why don't we just we'll drive home, we'll pull into a lay-by, we'll stop at a fish and chip shop, we'll get fish and chips, and the kids can have fish and chips in paper, usually in newspaper. The years ago it was in newspaper. They're going to have fish and chips, and it'd be a real treat." And the kids thought that that was a great idea. So we stayed in the labor. We ate our fish and chips, and then we drove home. Now, had we been allowed in the pool, I would have never discovered what I discovered. Had we not stopped for fish and chips, I would have been too early. Had we taken longer with the fish and chips, we probably would have been too late. But as we pulled up to the house, um, well, uh, my husband's car was parked down the lane that ran down the side of the house. First little telltale sign, why isn't it parked in the driveway? It was sort of parked somewhat hidden, but when you drove by, you could actually see it. And then, for some reason, you know how you have this little knowing thought. And I remember saying to my friend Barbara, "Can you keep the kids in the car? I'm just going to go to the house." And as I tried to open the door, the kitchen door, it wouldn't open. It was obviously locked. And I remember banging, 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 banging on the door. My husband came, flustered, hot, dishevelled. You could see that he'd somehow gotten himself partially dressed. And a few minutes later, right behind him was my best friend and neighbour. Naughty, naughty, naughty. Not a nice way to find out that your husband is cheating on you, but I always felt that my father had a hand in things. I always felt that, when we pass into the spirit world, we're able to see all, aren't we? We're able to see, what's going on. If we love our kids, we go visit them. We see things. We see what's going on. And I always felt that my father had seen, and this was his way of saying to me, "All right, this is what's happening." Uh, anyway, so if you have those tales to tell, I'd love to hear them. You can tell me now. Perhaps some of you are already writing about your particular instances or what have you. And maybe you want to tell us here. I promise I won't tell anybody. I might read it out, but you won't. You all know my name. We only know your first names. We don't worry with second names. We don't worry about where you are or where you live or what you're up to. Um, but if you would like to share, or if you would like to send us an email, and I'll say it again, chris@rosemaryaltea.com. Anyway, all right, I think that's the end of my story. So what do we say now? Oh, yes, we say, and that is the end. Chris,
Well,
did you like those few stories?
so far, no stories. People had already typed in some questions that they were hoping you would answer.
Oh, okay.
Maggie did say, I now find if I am running very early or late, I look up and say a thank you when I arrive at where I am going because there is usually something on the road that happened.
Yes. Well, I always think, people say, "Oh, you'll never guess who I bumped into," or I can't believe it. It was sort of such a coincidence that I met so and so or such and such. But we do know, don't we, that there are no coincidences and that things are meant to happen in the way that they do happen. So that's so I always look at it that way. So thanks, Maggie, for that comment.
And Dean wants you to know he's down to his last piece of Christmas cake.
Wow, really? Did he share it with anybody? Has he eaten it all himself?
Maybe that will show up in his story.
Yeah, Dean, I just want to mention I missed the ingredient. One little ingredient you got to put some sort of it doesn't matter what kind of oil. I prefer not to use olive oil. I think it's the only thing I don't use olive oil in actually, but sunflower oil or I don't know, whatever oil, canola oil or something. You've got to put that in your pans. You've got to get them nice and hot. And when you pour your Yorkshire pudding batter in, as you're pouring it in, the oil should be so hot you hear the sizzle, and then they go straight back in the oven. And whatever you do, do not open the door, everybody. I don't know. For those of you who looked at my Instagram, I thought it was very, very cute. Samantha said, Mum, not everybody has Grey Eagle to tell them when the things are ready. But it is true that I do who's Grey Eagle, and we do have conversations, and he's always with me in the kitchen. And if I'm cooking something that I don't eat, I'll say to him, is there enough salt in this, or what do you think about that? My daddy sometimes gets involved in my cooking. And things like Yorkshire puddings, if you open too soon, they're going to sink, and they're going to be nasty and thick and not nice at all. So 20 minutes on a hot oven. But, if you are sensitive, or if you are getting used to listening to that little voice inside of your head, listen carefully, because in every walk of life, in everything that you do, whether you're cooking, whether you're gardening, whatever it is that you're doing, um, you know, those in the spirit world, your loved ones in the spirit world, will love to be involved with you. So try and pay attention and listen to the things that they're saying to you. And if, Dean, you're in your kitchen and you hear that little voice in your ear saying, open the oven door, um, don't do it after 5 minutes, but listen, check, because I'm sure they'll be helping you out. So keep going, Chris.
Well, I think the biggest surprise for everyone regarding your Yorkshire pudding is it's not pudding like chocolate pudding or vanilla pudding or butterscotch pudding. Everybody's surprised it's not pudding.
Well, in England, it's pudding. In my country, it's pudding. But you can, a lot of in Yorkshire especially, where Yorkshire puddings were originated, they'll very often have. If you take the size of, if you look at the picture of my Yorkshire puddings and you take that size, they would usually have something that was probably twice that size, and they would have it as an appetizer with some gravy in the middle, and they'd eat that first, and then they'd eat their main course. I think they were maybe created initially because they were very cheap, very easy to make, and very, very filling for the working man. So you could, I mean, you should see Reese with them. But, we would sometimes, as kids, we'd mostly have them as a savoury with our roast beef and our mashed potatoes, or whatever it is you've got there, with a bit of gravy on. Um, but if there was any little pieces left over, sometimes we'd spread jam on them and have them as, it's dessert, or put powdered sugar over the top, or all of that sort of thing. They, but my grandson will attest. He's a very picky eater. We're always looking for new things for him to eat, because he'll just stick to the same things all the time. And so when I made the Yorkshire puddings, and he actually said, "Oh, these are nice. Can I have some more?" That's huge. So he's had a Yorkshire pudding every day this week. No more today, though. I'm afraid they're all eaten. Anything else going on, Chris?
Well, Asma says, I love you, love your wisdom and Saturday stories.
Oh, darling, thank you so, so much. It feels a little bit today as if it's a cooking show, but it actually isn't a cooking show. So go ahead, Chris, keep going.
All right, so now we're getting to some of the questions. We're going to start with Mark. He has a couple of questions today. We're going to do the first one.
Hi, Mark.
A question for Gray Eagle and you, Rosemary. A very dear colleague and friend, Juanita, American Indian and loving soul, has the virus and may pass. I'm saddened greatly. Will she survive this, or is she transitioning to the next life? This has affected my very core. She's one I would speak with on a regular basis. Help me calm my heartache. If she's meant for heaven, so be it. If it's not her time, so be it. I feel so helpless.
Well, Mark, you aren't helpless, are you? Did you forget that you're a healer? Did you forget that you have the ability to send healing? Being a healer does not mean, oh, we go out there and we cure people. Being a healer means that we're able to reach out, and we're able to give healing first and foremost to the soul. And this is what I try to instill into my students all the time. Our soul is that is in need of sustenance and in need of light. And if we can share some of our light, some of our soul's light, some of our soul's energy with our patients, or with, in your case, Mark, it would be with Juanita, you're not helpless at all. So get a grip. What will happen will happen. You've already said that, haven't you? And you're happy with the choice either way. As a friend, you'll miss her tremendously if she leaves us. Um, and but you know, whatever is meant to be, and if it is her time, I suspect it isn't quite her time. But none of us is helpless. None of us. Just, if you can't, obviously you're not able to see her, so you can't go and hold her hand. But there are many ways of holding somebody's hand. So sit in your chair, sit in a comfortable spot, close your eyes, envision that you are with her, envision her energy, envision her as a person, and surround her with your healing energy. Um, I know that you know how to do this, but for those of you who are listening who don't know how to do this, please go to YouTube, go to my Healing Hands Around the World. There are lots and lots of videos there where I will sit and talk you through the process of healing. I will sit and talk you through the process of giving healing to your own self. I will sit and talk to you about the process and describe the process and show you, in fact, how just with, just with certain small things that we need to do, that you can actually send healing out into the universe. And particularly, you can send healing out to Juanita. And even as I'm talking to you, Mark, I'm doing it. So that saying, "Can you walk and chew gum?" Is that what they say? Or can you put your hand around your stomach, go round and round at the same time, pat your head? Well, this is one of those times I can be talking to you, but I can also be sending out my energy, my healing energy to Juanita, and I know that it will affect her. Now, it might affect her in a way that we don't want. Maybe it will help her to ease her path if it is her time, or maybe it will help her and give her the energy to fight and to recover from this. You know, a lot of people don't know, but I too had the virus at the beginning of last year, in February of last year. I was probably sick for, well, several weeks, if not months. Um, and I had it pretty badly. Um, there is a neighbor of my daughter's who had it. She was sick for about 3 or 4 days, just a bit like a cough. So the different degrees, people suffer with different degrees of it. For all of you out there who have had the virus, I'm going to say this. I understand from my daughter's neighbor that there are what is it, support groups for victims of COVID. And if you want to be a victim, knock yourself out, go ahead. I refuse to be a victim. I'm not a victim. I am a survivor. I know those of you who have had cancer and who are survivors understand exactly what I'm talking about. It's about the mentality of, what are you going to be in your life? And not just about COVID, not just about cancer, but just about everything in your lives. Are you going to be that victim, or are you going to be the survivor? Are you going to be the victim who blames everybody else or points to everybody else and thinks that everybody else has got a better life than they? Are you going to be the victim who looks negatively on things? Or are you going to be the survivor who, yeah, all right, it was awful. Trust me, look, I was in bed. I never am in bed. I refuse to be sick most of the time. And every single year, except this year, touch wood, uh, for the last 6 years, I've had severe bronchial pneumonia and can barely breathe sometimes. And when I first was suffering with COVID, that's what I thought it was. I put myself to bed. I keep myself out of the way. I don't like people fussing around me, so I stayed by myself. I was so sick. I could barely get out of bed to feed the dog. Thank goodness I had a friend who came in and did those things for me. Um, right. Okay. It wasn't nice. Actually, it really wasn't nice. I know there are many of you out there listening who've lost your loved ones to this horrible, horrible thing. But I also know there are many of you out there who've lost your loved ones to other illnesses as well. Um, you know, you can't go before your time. It's not possible to go before your time. So, Mark, if Juanita is to leave us, it will be because it's her time. I know that. But none of us is helpless ever. If you are sick, give healing to yourself. If you have friends, give healing to them. Mark, come on. You've got beautiful healing hands. What's going on here? Think about it, my lovely. You can do a lot to help, and then you won't feel nearly so helpless. I think when we get sick or we see our loved ones who are sick, the worst feeling in the world is that we can't do anything. We just have to sit twiddling our thumbs. And I always make sure that the families of my patients know you can do something. Here is something that you can do. And they're grateful for it because they feel that they are participating somewhat in the healing process, whether it's you're healing someone and preparing their way to leave us, or whether you're healing someone preparing their way to recover and come back to us. Doesn't matter really, as long as you're helping to prepare the way. Chris.
All right, we're going to change topics to soul signs.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Barb's on. Rosemary, I'll be reading soul signs. However, do we really have soulmates? And if so, will we be with them in the spiritual world? Some reason that's been on my mind.
Okay. Um, there's an awful lot of talk about soulmates. People talk about soulmates, thinking that you meet somebody, you click with them, you connect with them, and are so disappointed when the relationship does not last forever. First of all, yes, we do have soulmates. We have soulmates. We have playmates. And we have workmates. And in soul signs, you will discover the differences between those three things. I love this book. I know I wrote it. I've said this before, but we've been talking about soul signs for a while, and it must have been on one of those shows, and somebody wrote in a question, can you tell me the name of the author? Because I'm saying this is my favorite book ever and I love it, and one thing and another. A lovely person wrote in and said, can you tell me the name of the author so I can go out and buy it? Yeah. That would be me. But actually, in truth, Grey Eagle is the author of this book. He was my teacher. He helped and guided me to this, helped me to understand the different types of energy that there are, the different kind of souls that there are. Souls we are a cluster. We are a cluster of souls born onto this earth, and we have certain types of energy, um, and one of those soul types is definitely your soulmate, the one who is the most compatible with you. But sometimes we meet our soulmate, and I'm thinking of my own one. Well, I've been lucky to have two soulmates, and you might say to yourselves, well, if she's had two soulmates, then why is she on her own? Just because we have soulmates doesn't mean that we are together in this life, but it certainly does mean that we are soulmates into eternity. So yes, I think the question was, will we see our soulmates, or will we meet our soulmates in the spirit world? Absolutely, definitely. Some of us are lucky to meet those soulmates and value them. Some of us are too young to know what we're doing, and we muck it up. But those, even though we muck it up, and I speak for myself when I say this, certainly on the one occasion, um, that person is always in your mind and always in your heart. It's not that you're longing for them. It's not that you're wishing that things would have been different, although, of course, you do wish that. It's not that they interrupt your lives or stop you from living or stop you from finding somebody else. It's just that soulmates are those who retain their presence in not in our only in our hearts, but in our energy, in our aura, in our very soul, and they retain their presence. And my John, and he is still my John. He's married. He has two wonderful sons who I got the privilege to speak with many years after he and I broke up. Um, he and I was also very privileged to be able to talk to him again as well. It was a wonderful, wonderful thing. Um, it wasn't that I was looking for a relationship again with him. It wasn't that I was seeking him out. It was just one of those things that happened, and it was wonderful that it happened. And I wanted to say to his wife, don't worry, don't worry. We we have something that is special, but that does not mean that we have it and will be together in this world all the time. So in soul signs, we explain all of these things, and we are planning, and we still have to pin down the weekend that we're doing soul signs, and it will be either the 21st and 22nd of February, or it will be the 27th and the 28th of February. We were going to do it 5 evenings in a row, but we had so many people saying, don't do that, I'm at work, I can't do that. So we thought, right, we'll have a weekend session then, or maybe even 2 weekend sessions where we can, lots of people read the book. There is a golden rule in the book. So I've forgotten the name of the person who says she's reading the book and asking the question, but remember the key, the golden key to understanding this book is first know your soul group. Don't go outside of that. Focus on your soul group. Are you an earth sign? Are you an air sign? Are you a fire sign or water sign? Who are you? What are you? Which group do you fit into? And once you've decided that, then you only have 3 choices. So in our earth signs, we have the warrior soul. Um, we have the whatever else I've got, the dreaming soul. No, sorry, that's not right. We have the hunter soul, and we have the visionary soul. And I can't believe that I forgot that, because my daughter is very much a visionary soul. I am very much a warrior soul. Does that surprise you? And so, which is the most compatible of our soul signs? So, my darling, as you're reading it, I'm so thrilled you've got it and you're reading it. Remember the golden key, soul group first, otherwise you're going to be completely and utterly confused and you won't know where you are. So that's the rule when you're reading this book. But in our soul science webinars, we're going to explain all. And if you're out there and you still haven't found your soulmate, or you still haven't found that compatible person, you still are looking for love, let's say, or if you are have a relationship but it's really not going very well, um, this is the webinar for you, because it's all about relationships. And as February is the month of love, as my grandson tells me, which of course it is, as February is the month of love, we thought that this would be the perfect time to do our soul signs webinar. You really, everyone out there should read soul signs. You really shouldn't miss it. I know I feel as if I'm trying to sell tickets here, but you really shouldn't miss it, because you will learn so much, and you will learn what to look for in somebody else. You'll learn how to make better relationships with your children. You'll understand them better. You'll understand your friends better. In the workplace, you'll understand your bosses better. You'll understand why you can't stand this boss, but the other boss is fantastic. You'll learn all of those things in our webinars. That's it, Chris. I'm done now with soul signs. Shall we move on?
Well, I'm sure Barb benefited from that. So Betta says, Dear Rosemary, Saturday afternoon in your company is really enjoyable.
Oh,
Your is. Thanks for giving us your time. P.S. That color is enchanting on you. And I also say hello to Gray Eagle.
oh, Bessa, thank you so very much. Um, I did have a bit of a chuckle this morning. I brought with me one suitcase, as Chris can attest to. I brought with me one suitcase to New York, and I was laughing because Chris and I the other day we were talking about clothes, and she said, "Well, when I go away, I like to bring tons of stuff because I like lots of choices." Uh, I've been here for nearly 2 months now in New York. Have one suitcase. I don't have many choices here. And I was thinking this morning when I put on this top, I thought, oh gosh, I can't wait to go back to Florida to get into my wardrobe and to find something different to wear. There's only so many times in a week that you can wear, you sort of you rotate between the dozen things or the half dozen things you've got here, and they get old pretty quickly. So better, thank you for that. I feel better about wearing it now. Yes, Chris.
Okay, Mary says, my 3 children's doctor had me put them in an exercise program to become healthier. Do you or Gray Eagle have any advice for either child?
What is wrong with them, did you say?
The doctor put them in an exercise program to become healthier.
um, could you read it from the beginning? Was it my 3 children?
My 3 children's doctor had me
Got it.
put them. You got it?
Oh, okay, I got it. Oh well, you know um, there are so many people who exercise. And in my time over the years, I have exercised from time to time, but I think it's more important. I mean, don't misunderstand me. Of course, exercise is great. And if your kids, especially in the wintertime, if your kids aren't moving around so much, well, much better to get that energy out of them, isn't it? And so, doing some exercise depends. I wouldn't go crazy. I wouldn't force them into, you know, playing basketball 3 times a week or something if they don't want to. Gentle exercise can be just as powerful, by the way, as really grinding hard physical exercise. So I think that each child is different, and you have to accommodate each child and see what each child is able to do. I don't think you should force any child to exercise in a way that they can't or hate to do. I think you should, find out the things that they like to do. If it's running, if it's walking, if it's, just walking around the living room 10 times is a good exercise. Dancing is the best exercise. So I think if you want to, especially in the wintertime, and especially with COVID, if you want your kids to exercise, put on a dance thing on, tons of them are on the TV, and dance with them and get, you can all get going doing that, and it doesn't seem like exercise at all. So I think you need to be very careful with the kind of exercise that you're foisting on your children, and some children love it and some children do not. So find ways that they're going to love doing what they're doing. Reese loves to exercise. He has no idea he's exercising because we're just dancing around the room, and we're jigging around the room, and we're jumping up and seeing how high we can jump to this note and that note, and so on and so forth. So different ways. But I think that more important, certainly for me, than exercise is finding a way for you to give them healthy food. And I don't mean rabbit food, just, they're kids, they're growing, they need sustenance. So give them good food, not fast food. Make sure that what you're giving them is healthy. And I think also sitting around the dinner table with your children and eating a proper meal, sitting at the table and sort of turning off cell phones, turning off the TV. That goes for mum and dad as well. Turning off cell phones, turning off the TV, sitting at the table and just uh, talking. Talking is the best exercise. Sitting with your kids is the best exercise, and eating healthy is, something that is important that you should do. Um, I think that's all I have to say on that subject. Yes, Chris.
All right. Mark had the second question, which was if Gray Eagle is open to sharing. I've had a dismal week on health, death, etc. Can Gray Eagle share anything about my friend Shannon P? She was found dead on the floor in her home, and no one has said anything, and I've had such sorrow. Is she okay?
Well, I'm listening to Grey Eagle, Mark, and he has put his hand on my shoulder. And I think your worries are understandable but foundless. Um, that's all I can say on the topic for now. We don't have time for me to go into this. I'm not even sure that I would go into this with you because this is personal to her and her family. So, um, so if her family came to me, we could talk about it. But unfortunately, I do have to be respectful of the privacy of others. But as for yourself, come on, you heard what I said earlier. Give healing to your own self. Give healing to your friend who passed in this way. Send healing energy out to them. You can do a lot. You need to fill your aura, your energy field with bright, bright, bright healing colors. Are you listening to me? So get on with it. Chris.
All right, so now we've got a couple of stories, that you said if people wanted to share
Yes.
their stories.
Yes.
So Cheryl says, years ago, we were driving from New York to California. One morning, passing Oklahoma City, my boyfriend wanted to go to a store in their downtown. I said, no, we need to keep going. Later, we found out the Oklahoma City bombing had happened and we could
Oh,
have been down there.
yeah. Wow, Sharon. Well, that is a near miss. I'd be interested. Did you have a sense? Did you Was it just something that happened? Let's not go, let's not bother, or did you have a sense of it? You maybe haven't even thought to ask yourself. Was it something that I knew without knowing that I shouldn't be there? This is the way that we start to discover the little voice inside of our head, that little nudge that we get from our loved ones in the spirit world. This is when we know, when we start to question, did I know that, or was it just something that I just didn't want to do? But wow, you were very fortunate to miss that. Yes,
Yeah,
Chris.
Cheryl said, I just had that strong feeling that we were not to go downtown at that time.
Wow, your angels were with you that day.
All right, so here's the next one from
Yep.
Cameron. A few
Morning,
weeks
Cameron.
ago, a few weeks ago, we went on vacation, and on the way to our destination, I kept saying, I'm going to be careful because of the deer. The next day, my husband and I crashed because he hit a deer
Oh,
after I allowed him to drive.
oh.
My intuition has always been on point, but I believe we were in the right place at the right time because I had kept seeing 12:12. And when I looked at the time, it was 12:12.
12. Oh, how wow! That's well. I'm assuming that you both got out of it without too much damage. But yes, isn't that interesting? Because sometimes, and I find it interesting that we're told that something is going to happen. We try sometimes to avoid it, but sometimes we can't. And it's almost as if you feel much better about things because you knew that it was meant to happen, and you knew that there was no way that you could actually avoid it. But it sort of prepares you somehow, doesn't it, for the incident or for the thing that is going to happen. It's almost as if the spirit world is saying, be prepared, and that's what we become. We become prepared. Very interesting. Thank you for sharing that, Chris.
Dean was answering your question about his Christmas cake. He said, I did not, in capital NOT, share. I'll have to find the right oil for the pudding.
Sunflower oil, canola oil, any kind of oil. Get on with it, Dean. just just make sure it's hot before you put the batter in it. Just saying. We're not a cooking show. Moving on.
All right. Jeff is on. He
Hi,
said,
Jeff.
I've had visits from my parents who are both in the spirit world. Their presence is very reassuring that our shared love is active. Thank you, Rosemary.
Well, Jeff, thank you for sharing that story. How is the granddaughter? Is she still there, or did she have to go home? Uh, I want to know all of that from you. and uh, and isn't it fantastic being a grandparent? My grandson Reese is he's writing a book, and he's following in the family footsteps. And at school, they've written fiction books, but now they're writing a non-fiction book. And the other day I was listening in. He was sort of being on a webinar thing, but in his classroom, and his teacher was telling the kids that her good friend was a published author. So Reese was asking me afterwards, and I said, well, at some point you need to tell her, because she thought it was so great. She had a friend who was a published author. I said to Reese, but your grandmama is a published New York Times best-selling author. You have to tell her that. So he chuckles every time they're talking about non-fiction books, but he's now writing a non-fiction book, and it's hysterical. He comes to me, sits with me, we run ideas with each other. And I mean, he's only 7 years old. It's fantastic what kids do at school these days. Keep going, Chris.
All right, two things about COVID. Maggie says, I believe I had it twice in November of 2019 and again at the end of January of 2020. I just pushed through, as that is all I can do. Take care of myself and go on. And Francina says, writing to you from Spain, I had the
Right.
virus and had to stay at the hospital for a few days.
Yeah.
It's quite a scary situation, but my guardian angel is always by my side and my true love too. I'm very lucky and grateful.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that. And you obviously are a survivor and not a victim. I would like to revisit this just for a moment, because I know that we're almost out of time. But in life, everything is about attitude, as we know. And my friend Al and I, we've done many of those shows about everything being about attitude. But it is so true, and it does not matter whether it's that you've made a cake and it tastes awful. Uh, you can blame the ingredients. You can blame the heat. You can blame your oven. You can blame anything at all. You can become a victim. Oh well, my cakes are usually great. Or you can just laugh and survive it and say, well, better get uh, myself together here. I made a lousy cake and now better make a good one. So it's in every walk of life. You can write a book and it's successful or it isn't, or you can paint a picture and it's a good picture or not, or it doesn't matter what in life you do. And if you're working in an office, or if you're working down a coal mine, when things go wrong in our lives, we have a choice, and our choice is to uh, look around and see who else we can blame, or can we blame a situation? Our choice is, do we become a victim, or do we become a survivor? And as a warrior soul, I don't do well with victim mentality, and I can stand it for so long with with myself and with others, because let's face it, we all do a poor me from time to time. But I really can't take victim mentality. And when I feel myself going down that path, I really get mad with myself. I get irritable and irritated and say, come on, pull your socks up, get over this. And I do. But I do find it hard to be around people who have victim mentality for very long, because all they do is, in their own victim way, probably half the time without realizing, they're pulling you down as well. And I refuse to be pulled down, and I refuse to be a victim, and I refuse to be around people who love to have that victim mentality, because many people do, unfortunately. So I'm going to ask you all out there, are you going to be a victim this weekend, or are you going to be a survivor this weekend? I know exactly what I'm going to be. I'm blowed if I'm going to be a victim. My life is too short to be moaning and groaning and wishing for something that I can't have. I'm going to take what I have maybe let's finish this show with a little cooking tip, shall we? I'm going to be making some hobnobs because we almost ate them all, and some shortbreads because my grandson said 2 days ago, I said, do you want dessert, darling? He said yes. Could I have a chocolate shortbread? And I had to hang my head in shame because there are no more. He ate them all. So, are you going to be a victim or are you going to be a survivor? Chris, I know what you're going to be doing. Well, I don't actually know what you're going to be doing, but I do know which way you're going. The wind blows in your house. Victim or a survivor, Chris?
Absolutely survivor.
Yeah, definitely. We have time, I think, for a couple more.
Okay, Bridget said, my stepmom passed away a week ago from COVID-19. We feel she wanted to die even before she got it. Everything is so raw.
Yes, as you're saying this, and just before you said that, Greg will put his hand on my shoulder, and I do believe that she could have just simply had a cold or a cough or something, and she would have gone because I think it was her choice. I think she knew that her time was coming, and I really feel that she just decided. And I think that happens with so many people. We know that our time is coming, or we just decide not to fight it. It is our way of preparing ourselves for what is inevitable because we cannot die before our time. I'm so very sorry for your loss, but don't despair. Don't be despondent because I know she's around and so much happier. Grail has his hand on my shoulder and sending love to you all. So please don't despair. You know, it's those of us who are left behind, isn't it? Those of us who are left behind who feel the devastation of the loss of a loved one. Those of us who are left behind who are going to be missing that person. Those of us who are left behind who feel that loneliness, that spot where that person filled our lives and is no longer, but yet they are still there. I woke up this morning thinking about Cachorro. I didn't go to bed actually until 5 o'clock this morning thinking about Cachorro, and I haven't seen him yet. I promise you I'll let you know when I do. But thinking about him and knowing that he's with Nino and knowing that he's safe with his family. I want you all out there, all of you who have lost somebody, whether it's last week, last year, a decade or two ago, no matter. They are with us, They do survive. It's those of us who are left behind who are struggling, who have the difficult time of it. Chris.
So it's just afternoon. Are you looking? You got a couple of people saying for the choice, they're going to be survivors. Amy and Francina are both saying that.
Oh, brilliant. Well, Chris, it's up to you. You're the one who runs this show. I'm just sit here and do my thing.
Oh, I
So,
don't think I run this. I think the spirit world has something to do with it.
no. Well, let me tell you, you're the one who presses the buttons and you're the one who does all the hard work. So,
And grateful for it. No, there really aren't any. Well, Mark has one last question then. Can you share what ectoplasm and mediums? I heard this and unsure if all mediums do this.
no. Yeah, no. No, I'm not going to share it, Mark. No, all mediums do not do this. It is, Chris and I were just talking about this just before the
I know
show.
that was so weird.
Yeah. Um, so, all right. Now, I can't go all scientific on you. We don't have time anyway. But ectoplasm is, well, let me go back. All right, each of us as human beings, we are made up of many, however many million or trillions of cells in our body, and those cells all lock together to form us. All right, and some of those, when somebody has anemia, it's because there are too many white cells in the body. Sometimes people have there are too many red cells in the body or whatever. Our cell structure is extremely important to us. Now, if you look at a cell, you go and Google it. If you look at a cell, one of the human cells, you'll see that it's sort of like this round amoeba-like thing, and it's got different layers inside. So there are different sort of, let's say, there's like different structures within each cell. And one of those structures, part of our cell structure, is ectoplasm. And it's that substance that sort of, it retains, I don't quite know what it does, but anyway, it's important and it's part of our cell structure. So a physical medium is someone who can, putting themselves in a certain state, whether it's through well, whichever way they do it, different mediums can put themselves in a certain state where part of that cell structure from, and again, depending on the medium, sometimes it comes from all of the cells, sometimes it comes from just certain parts of our cell structure. That it's, if you like, it's as if the cell is leaking ectoplasm, and that ectoplasm is sort of, let's say, it leaks out of us in a way. I'm putting this very simplistically. If you want to know more, go Google it. And that ectoplasm is very often used by those in the spirit world. Um, my my sister and I had a situation. My sister knew nothing about any of it. She was just, let's say, the willing victim in all of this. But when my father came through to talk to us, as I looked at my sister, it was as if there was a shroud over her head, this white, filmy substance that covered her from her head to her shoulders. And my father used this to put the impression of himself. It's almost as if you can imagine this sort of like filmy, sometimes sort of very dry substance of that those in the spirit world will put over themselves, and through it you can see it's like a mask. You can see the outline, or you can see the face of that person. This all sounds extremely weird, right? Doesn't it? It sounds like this is an impossibility and so on, but it is a possibility. However, number one, physical mediums are extremely rare, extraordinarily rare. Most mediums are not physical mediums. And to find a physical medium who produces ectoplasm, I can remember when my daughter was ill, the doctor said to her that she has a blood condition, which I do, and he said to her, it's as rare as hen's teeth. And she looked at me and she said, well, how many teeth do hens have, Mummy? And I said, they don't. So a medium who is able to produce and to use ectoplasm in the right way, it's so rare. So anyone out there who thinks to talk about it needs to be very careful what they're saying, because it really happens so rarely. But anyway, ectoplasm is part of the cell structure. Each individual cell has a layer inside which is ectoplasm, and that ectoplasm is what is supposed to, and occasionally does, very rarely, seep out, and those in the spirit world are able to use it to their advantage to help them to communicate with us in a variety of different ways. So if you want to know more about ectoplasm, Mark, go to Google. My one caution to all of you: don't believe everything you read, please. So read it with a little pinch of salt, with an enormous amount of skepticism, and then that way, if you do that, you'll discover the truth, or something close to. Anyway, Chris, I think we're done.
I think you are correct.
Pardon?
I think you are correct.
So it's nice to end on an educational note, don't you think? So, all right, for all of you out there, please, please enjoy your the rest of your weekend. Um, please think about the victim mentality. Are you a victim or are you a survivor? And if you come back saying, "Oh golly, I'm one of those victims," you can change. You know, just change your attitude. You don't have to be a victim. Nobody has to be a victim. So, please, please, thank you for joining me, all of you. You are all lovely. You are all wonderful. And we love having people from all over the world. I'd like to say thanks to you, Chris, for all that you do. And of course, I'd like to say thank you to Gregor for his presence here and helping us and guiding us through all of this. And I especially would like to thank all of you out there who join me every week. You are lovely. What would we do without you? Well, I know what I would do. I would be doing nothing very much, would I? Maybe I'd have more time in the kitchen. All right. So please, 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 until I see you again, we'll be back on Thursday, next Thursday, for Our The Spirit World Sees All. And we're going to figure out which topics. We're going to have some topics. So if you out there would like me to talk specifically about a topic, topic that is close to you, or like Mark asked about ectoplasm, if you out there have a topic that you would like me to talk about, email me. You can either email Chris, she'll get it before me anyway, Chris at rosemaryaltea.com. That's Chris with a K, Kris, Chris with a K, or you can email Rosemary at rosemaryaltea.com. Go to our website, rosemaryaltea.com, and all one word for more. See our little movies that are going on, our little clips here and there, and to see what we're up to. And so until I see you all again, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And please have a very, very blessed rest of the day and have a wonderful and a very blessed weekend, everybody.